The Raptors defense has figured out the Cavs and evened up this series. The Celtics get hot against the Sixers. We've also got the young Spurs growing up right before our eyes. And yes, of course, we have to preview the Game 5 and the rest of the series between the Nuggets and Timberwolves, which is kind of flipped, or maybe not. We'll talk about it on today's show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, the Sleepless One, host of the Hoops Tonight podcast over at The Volume, and still awake from last night. There's no sleep for this guy, Jason Timpf.
That's the we were just talking before we went live. That's the cadence. This first round is just so incredibly insane, just with all the games and all the chaos. But I will say, I think this has been the most interesting first round this is my 5th playoff run that I've covered. This has been the most interesting first round that I can remember.
It is interesting because like the storylines are big. It's not just, it's a good series. It's that, man, the fallout, the repercussions from every series feels like it carries some kind of stakes. And you are right, man. This first weekend, I had my daughter's basketball tournament too over the weekend, my 9-year-old. So that's 6 games on a Saturday. Then you have to come home and catch up on everything. So you got to add, in between all of this, add an entire 9th grade tournament to the mix. That requires even more analysis, quite frankly.
Did she play well?
Played well. 3rd grade. Shout out to 3rd grade Riot Squad. They got the championship victory. So there you go.
That's awesome.
We got a
little palate cleanser for your Nuggets.
Trust me, I needed it too. It's like I gotta get this. I'm not getting anything from Jokic in Denver. We're gonna couch that one though. We're gonna talk about it later on. I actually think it's a different angle than what we did yesterday with Mark Stein on it, so it should be good. But we always get to the games, the actual games. So let's go to our FanDuel game breakdown and start breaking down some of these. We're going to start with the Spurs and the Blazers. This game followed a very similar script to Game 3, even though there was a new character involved. 114-93, the Spurs get the win. Portland opened up a big lead early on, like a 19-point lead. I think it got all the way up to 19, so it was a monster lead. And then it turned out to be a blowout in the second half, a complete and utter dominant performance by the Spurs defense. 73-35 in the second half. That's dominant. Wemby plus 28 in 27 minutes. Where do you want to start?
I think you have to start with Wemby in the defense because I think there's some truth to the fact that the Spurs offense can end up in such a rut sometimes that it compromises their transition defense. And then they can start to really get picked on in the open floor, something you saw a little bit in the second quarter. But they held the Blazers to what, 35 points or whatever it was in the second half of that game. And really it just was Victor Wembanyama came back out there and completely shut down the rim. His ability to guard both Robert Williams in the dunker spot and any driving pick and roll handler or any driving ISO handler, his ability to kind of like just lunge forward and even bother guys around the elbows. And then you got to give credit to Steph Castle. I've been really impressed by all of the Spurs guards and the job they've done defensively.
Yes.
They've just done a really good job of containing the ball. But Steph Castle was like doing a lot of off-ball work, denying Denny Avdia, a lot of really good pursuit to where like Denny would get downhill and then get stymied by Wemby, but then lose sight of Steph kind of coming back into the picture as he would kind of swipe or get good contest on him. And I just thought they completely shut things down defensively, which then led to this like confidence dynamic that shifted to where even the Portland players were just starting to make a lot of silly mistakes on offense and throw up some real bricks just simply because they were so thrown off by how good the Spurs defense was. The second thing that stood out to me was just obviously De'Aaron Fox and Devin Vassell got cooking on offense on the other end. They ended up scoring, I think, 73 points in the second half. And a big part of that was like Devin Vassell is just not missing his pull-up 15-footer right now. He's 9 for 16 on pull-up twos off the dribble so far.
An elite X factor for them, by the way, just because they're such a good team without it. And then every now and then he goes on those runs, and you're like, okay, well that's like a third-handed punch.
And it's a shot the defense is going to mostly concede, in most of these coverages that he's going to see. And even if they end up playing Minnesota in the next round or Denver in the next round, like he's going to get some of these looks against drop where he's able to get into the mid range and rise and fire. And then De'Aaron Fox, like I thought he did a really good job playing off 2 feet in this game. Just when he would get downhill on his drives, he'd come to a jump stop and he would bump Robert Williams, whoever the big was, out of space so that he could find some angles to finish around the basket. And then he got his ISO 3 going. And the last thing that really stood out to me was just in general, I really enjoyed watching Wemby deal with his first like playoff puzzle, in the sense that
this is the story to me.
Yeah, like you see the look that he's going to see a lot, which is a perimeter player on him and the big on Steph Castle. And Steph so far is making just enough threes to make it tenable with him off the ball. He's weirdly missing the wide open ones and knocking down some of the more contested ones, which he's leaving the wide open ones short, which I think just he's slowing down too much. So I think he could do himself some favors by just shooting with more pace when he's wide open. But Wemby is just so gifted at like all of the little like leverage battles in the post against smaller players. Most of the thin bigs get terrible at this sort of thing, but Wemby is so good at like, you're trying to like front me, I'm just gonna swim move you out of the way and cut, or like,
so funny.
I'm just gonna steal and create an easy vertical spacing window. And one of the things I've noticed with this matchup is like, when he has enough of a size advantage, like if he's just at least like 8 or 9 inches taller, he can some of
this is against most guys. You're talking about switches, so it's less so a center, it's more so against like a wing.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Because like, for instance, like he did struggle with this against like Aaron Gordon, for example. Like there's a specific type of forward. I'd add Julius Randle into this mix as well, which we might see in the next round if they advance. Like the bigger, like 6'9", 6'10", super strong forwards, he can have some issues with. But if they're not specifically that archetype of player, like if they're a center, he cooks them, and if they're a smaller wing, he cooks them off ball. And that to me is the big takeaway. Like it's a second playoff game, and he's already thriving under some pretty intense defensive game planning.
All right, so you got to 2 things here that I want to kind of pull on, the defense and the offense. Let's go to the offense first because you ended with it. Here's what you're talking about. And I have actually, it was halfway through the season when I said this is Wemby figuring out what his actual advantage is. Because for all the crossovers and one-legged threes and stuff, that stuff to me, I almost yawn at. Because I'm like, look, it's kind of novelty. Whatever. Maybe it works. It's cool in a pinch. It's a nice value add. But that's not going to be how he becomes an all-time great on the offensive end. What he's really figured out is that how to maximize his advantage off ball, not just to become a scorer, but to put so much pressure on the defense that your help side and rotations are completely compromised. And what you're talking about is he'll get a switch, which is inevitable in today's NBA, and he'll go down to the block and throw his 8-foot wingspan or whatever it is. He'll put one arm up over here. And when you're guarding that, you think, okay, well, the pocket's up here. I'm so far away from it. That's an easy pass. I have to shift to that side. And he spins and then puts this hand up. And all of a sudden you have to take like 3 steps to be like, okay, well, this one now is a thing. And it's not just putting arms up. It's the body positioning to kind of make you have to go all the way around him, then pivot. Now you have to go all the way to the other side, gain space, sink towards the basket, and you're just constantly putting pressure. And this to me is what has like, this is Wemby understanding what makes himself so valuable, and it's why this year has impressed me so much for him. He's always been the defensive guy. But that and the way he uses it, and it's also cuts. He just does a good job of knowing there's a seam here, and I don't even have to beat him with quickness. I can just throw my arm up, and they're not going to out-jump me. His ability to manipulate that for the defense and understanding. It's like he actually understands that this is a weapon, and I know how to win and how to leverage it. That's, to me, what has changed him. So I agree. When you watch the Spurs play, their offense can get ugly, but he really does have a new type of rim pressure that's not just run to and jump high and put pressure because you're a threat there. He can do it slowly with these little pivots and things, and you just watch the defense get sucked into the wrong spot and the Spurs score. So I agree. That's a huge one for me. He's figured that out.
Yeah, to your point, like the whole idea behind a size disadvantage is an overplay, right? Like if you're fronting, you're overplaying a specific passing window, but there's an over-the-top passing window that's there. If you're three-quarter fronting or playing one side, to your point, there's always the other side that is open. And with most post players, like, you know, let's say you're playing pickup, Adam, and you're being guarded by like a 6'3" dude. Like if he fronts or tries a three-quarter front or try to take away one of your angles, you can create a passing lane. But Wemby creates one that's just way bigger.
Yeah, it's a lob dunk. And he gets a lot of these where he's just standing, you throw it up, and he just like reaches the other direction, taps it in.
Yeah, like he had that stretch there. I think it was in like late third, early fourth. I can't remember exactly where it was, where he just got a bunch of dunks just working off the ball. And that to me is the main one that like is going to be really difficult for other teams to counter. And like, again, there's two sides to that coin. Like if Steph goes cold enough from three, there's a version of this where the center is just overplaying behind him and it can get more complicated. But like, I just think like when you look at the first test really for this group in terms of what playoff scheming looks like, they've handled it pretty well. I think you've seen some Spurs fans that have been a little discouraged by their cold spells, and that's to be expected. But like, how could you not counter that by saying, what about these hot streaks where they just like, this is back-to-back games where they've gone under big deficits, but they've also had gigantic runs, whether it was Dylan Harper in game 3 or it was the Wemby De'Aaron Fox kind of run in game 4. Like, their ceiling has been so astronomically high that it's kind of alleviated some of my concerns about their floor in this series.
Well, the defensive side is the real side of this, though. As much as the offense is fun to talk about, there have been big, as you mentioned, big explosions. I want to talk about Dylan Harper last, but second to last point is the defense with Wemby on the court is insane. And this was this was our first real, I feel it was this game 4 was our first real look at, okay, this is Wemby in the playoffs. It's really just like Wemby in the regular season, which is to say Portland is just dribble, drive, attack, break you down. They have Denny, who's so good at drawing fouls and getting into the paint, but they have a lot of guys that can beat you off the dribble and kick out and shoot. And when they get hot, they look great. But when Wemby's back there, he really does take away half of that threat. You're just not going to the basket. And the guys that can pressure the ball are not worried about getting beat off the dribble by a half step because the odds of them finishing consistently over Wemby and around Wemby is so low that you just can kind of stay home and you can guard and you can be aggressive. And right now, Portland looks like they can do the first part of their offense, get into the paint, and then it's like, okay, well, now what? We just have to move it out. It completely shut it off. I mean, 35 points and a half, and I don't even feel like Portland did anything wrong. You could just watch the processing as they get into the paint and they're like, well, now what? What's my angle? Or do I kick out? But nobody's left the shooter, so they're not open. Wemby's impact is as great in the playoffs. It's just Portland. We know they're not a great team. They'll be tested maybe later on. But so far, nothing has changed defensively for San Antonio. It looks exactly like it did in the regular season.
Yeah, it's just he's such a unique challenge in the sense that, like, I mean, I thought the highlight of the game was that Drew Holiday drive where he, in the second half, where he beats his man, gets into the lane, actually gets Wemby to bite on like a shot fake, and makes a perfect drop-off pass to Robert Williams, and Wemby just lands and turns around and puts his arms up like this without even jumping and blocks Robert Williams at the rim. And I'm just like, this is absurd, man. Like, what do you do? And, one of the things, too, I was thinking, Adam, obviously we have to start considering the idea that Denver might lose in this first round series.
I've considered it.
Yeah. And with the injuries to Donte DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards, I think it's safe for us all to admit that the likelihood of OKC and San Antonio meeting in the conference finals is substantial. It's a substantial likelihood. One of the things I was thinking of last night, because the dynamic with Wemby is just so bizarre and so different and takes such an adjustment period. Like, I mean, you literally watch, like, Portland was cruising in that game until Wemby came back in the late second quarter and the entire dynamic flipped. And what I kept thinking about is, like, OKC is playing Phoenix with, obviously no Mark Williams, so there's no rim protection. Ryan Dunn's out of the rotation. You watch the Suns. It's not the same Suns defense you saw at phases in the regular season where they were deeper and more athletic. And then they're going to advance and play either Alperen Şengün and Reed Shepherd or DeAndre Ayton and the weak perimeter defense core of the Los Angeles Lakers. Meanwhile, this Portland group's got some good perimeter defenders, and they're making San Antonio work in their own way. And if Minnesota advances between the Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels problem and just how good that physical that defense can be, there's a version of this where like OKC goes into game 1 against San Antonio and it's like, oh shit, like Wemby is very different than what we've just been dealing with. And like, we've seen a lot of examples of this in NBA history. I'd argue your team, Denver, is an example like this with the way that Jokic played offensively, or whether it was the Warriors and all their ball movement with Steph, where like when a team plays a kind of weird, unorthodox style, there can be an early series adjustment period where it just takes you a game or two just to figure out what you're up against. And like, as I was watching that last night, I'm like, there's a version of this where Wemby and the Spurs get an early series lead on a team like OKC just because Wemby is such a bizarre challenge. Like even their regular season matchups, they haven't faced Wemby in months and months and months. And he is just so unique and different than any other defensive challenge anywhere else around the NBA.
You really can't prep for it that well. We have to keep it moving, but there's one guy I have to talk about that Dylan Harper, man. I put this on the timeline. He is going to be in my top league pass rankings next year for players. I just love this guy's style, and we got to see a side of him. The real story for the Spurs is just their young guys growing up before our eyes. They've had a great regular season, but going into the playoffs, it's still different. They dropped game 2. There's some growing pains there where you're like, all right, there's some stuff to figure out. What Dylan Harper did in game 3, that really was, I think it was your tweet that said it was almost like we got a little preview of the future. He played the way he's going to be here in years to come. That guy and his ability to attack is just unbelievable. He has both the burst and aggression of like a Russell Westbrook type, meaning like he just is attacking. He's got the footwork of almost like a Shea to where he doesn't have to necessarily just blow by you. He can kind of just pivot a little bit, get you off balance until you open up a seam and then go. And then obviously Cade Cunningham, he gets that comp a lot. But what I loved was Scoot Henderson tested him. I like Scoot Henderson's energy too. He's not nearly as good, but I like that he was testing him, elevated the intensity, and that's where you're like, all right, let's see what these guys are made of. Dylan Harper's run in game 3 there to put the game away, essentially.
Oh, man.
That is probably the biggest, like loudest story to me of the first round was that run. I was like, well, there's Dylan Harper, and that's why that guy's moving way up my list of must-watch players.
He's going to be a star, Adam.
I agree.
The combination of nimbleness with his footwork, like the spin move that he hit Drew Holiday with was disgusting in that run. The explosive,
that's a great defender, by the way.
Like that's what's lacking from a guy like Shea in terms of his like appeal with casual fans is he's not going to rip baseline and just posterize Robert Williams the way that Dylan Harper did. He's got a lot of the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander-esque like ability to kind of power into your chest and get separation with like straight line power. I think the jump shot is a lot further along than people expected at this point. Like he's going to have up and down games like he did last night because his role is kind of in flux under the circumstances. But that dude's just a star. And like, frankly, if I was like a team like Houston, I would look and I'd be like, are any of my guys as good as Dylan Harper? Like, are any of them as good as Dylan Harper?
No, but to me, I'm so high on him, but I look at this and I go, I think he's going to be the number 1 option for San Antonio, and Wemby's going to be the most important player, and you could argue 1A, 1B. But Wemby, again, when I look at his game, I like the stuff he does off ball. I like the pressure he puts just by nature, and I wonder if that's going to be part of his long-term best value is the pressure he can constantly put on you. He'll score 30-plus a game just off of that. But Dylan Harper's the guy that I think is going to have the ball in his hands. And I like Castle, Fox, they got all these guys. But I look at Dylan Harper and I go, I think that's the guy that is the ball's in his hands and you have these talented players around him that all know how to play off ball. He is going to be a monster because that guy does not stop attacking. He's strong enough to do and fast enough to do whatever he wants. And he just has a knack for he has a nose for how to put pressure on the defense with the ball in his hands. It's unbelievable. And that game really did feel like fast forwarding a year and seeing what he's about to become. And it even gets better from there. I just love that guy. And if you're the Spurs, there's no better place to be in fanhood. Like if you rank all of the types of fanhood, first breakout run of your team when they're young and have a bright future. That's the best spot you can be in. Low stakes. They lose, whatever. We got a long runway. And if they win, you're like, oh my God, here it comes.
You're not aware of the crippling weaknesses that they'll be fighting against.
Yeah, exactly.
In their prime yet. Like it'll take something like that.
And in the Spurs' chances, there is a case like you just said. Teams haven't been able to see Wemby maybe over time. There is a chance there's no solution to Wemby's defense because he is that dominant at the moment that it's like maybe there is no adjusting. Let's go to our other game from last night that we want to break down, which is the Raptors getting a grinded out win over the Cavs, 93-89. Headline story here is, here go the Cavs again. We've seen this story before. But, it's one of those things where it's like every what is it? This is still from Tolstoy, I guess. Every happy team is happy the same way. Every unhappy team is unhappy in its own way. I'd say the Cavs are every failing playoff run is a failure in its own way. This one does feel a little bit different. The Harden-Mitchell ISO game has just been shut off. And now they have to play a different style, and you could tell they don't exactly have the rhythm or comfortability to attack. This is a great offense that's just scored 89 points against the Raptors.
Yeah, I think it's a telltale sign of one of the main reasons why the Harden archetype has struggled over the course of his playoff career. I think there's deeper stuff with Harden in terms of just his overall lack of intensity, because little things like you throw in a behind the back pass right into the other team's hands because you're just thinking it's chill regular season basketball, or that crazy pass that he threw to Jalen Tyson at the start of the fourth quarter yesterday that went right to RJ Barrett. Like, there's certainly like James Harden just needs to be more keyed up and like mentally like intense in these games. But the other part of it is like when you're going against a Jokic, Jamal Murray team, or a LeBron James led team, I'd even include like a Luka Doncic led team, a Steph Curry led team. They have so many different ways they can go about breaking you down offensively that it allows them to kind of adjust as series go along and be like, okay, I did this thing a lot, but now it's not working, so now I'm going to do this instead. Or like, I'm going to attack out of this spot on the floor. Like, oh, they're doing this to Jokic post up, so now we're going to run inverted pick and roll. Or they're doing this to our two-man game, so now we're going to go to our post ups. Or like LeBron, same sort of thing. Like, he can run spread pick and roll. He can pick on matchups in ISO. He can go down to the block and bully people. Luka's got that in his game. Steph Curry can run his off-ball attack, but he can also function as an inverted screener. He can also run spread pick and roll as well as anybody in the league. There's so much variety that they become a lot more difficult to solve. And one of the things that's historically happened with James Harden, like just go look at his basketball reference page and go to like any of his playoff series. Typically, especially when he was in his prime and he was a more high usage guy, he'd be pretty damn good at the beginning of a series. And then as the series kind of progressed, his efficiency would fall off of a cliff. And it's because if you and I went to go play one-on-one and you were just guarding me, and like early on when I'm hitting some of my moves, I would be able to get a lot of separation. You might fall for some of my fakes, and I'm going to start getting downhill. And like once you got to like that 15th rep, that 25th rep, the 40th rep, all of a sudden you start to pick up like some of my cues. Like, okay, when he does this, he usually does that. Like, I know when he goes to this move, he's probably going to this counter, like all that kind of stuff. And it just becomes easier to guard when I'm doing the same thing every single time, which is initiating off of a live dribble from 25 feet from the basket. And the story of the series is that Mitchell and Harden in game 1 and 2 were just cooking all of Toronto's perimeter defenders, but especially guys like Brandon Ingram and RJ Barrett and even Scotty Barnes to a certain extent. And over the course of the series, with each passing game, the Raptors defenders have gotten a little bit more comfortable. And like what really turned that game around was RJ Barrett started getting a bunch of ISO stops on Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, and they weren't even good looks. Like, he got great contests on every shot that they took. Scotty Barnes had a big one late. The one where he forced Donovan Mitchell into that left-handed floater was a really impressive play from Scotty, because he got wiped out by a screen, but he stayed in pursuit over the top, and he recovered back to Donovan Mitchell's right hand, which forced him to go to the left hand, which is a substantially lower percentage shot. And so basically what you're seeing is a dynamic where an offense for the Cavs that is dependent on their ISO play is becoming solved a little bit. Meanwhile, on the other end of the floor, the Raptors do have more things they can go to. And these inverted screens that Scotty's running are getting them great looks. We talked about that after game 3 when he was running him with Jamison Battle and hitting him on slips. But the game winner essentially was an inverted screen from RJ Barrett where he wiped out Dean Wade. Donovan Mitchell inexplicably went to the wrong side of the screen, and Scotty just went right downhill and damn near took the roof off the building with the dunk on Jared Allen. And it's just like the Raptors just look like they have a few more ways that they can get a decent shot right now, whereas on the other end, they're just more comfortable defending the Cavs guards in ISO, and that's going to be the dynamic in game 5. Like, it's going to swing on that dynamic. And the last thing I'll say about it is, what were the 2 good looks from 3 that the Cavs got and made down the stretch? It was a Donovan Mitchell ISO where he drove and kicked to James Harden,
right?
Who then pump faked and then rose up the short corner and hit a 3. And then another one where James Harden drove, kind of fumbled the ball a little bit, but got it back. But he found Sam Merrill above the break and hit him, and he hit a 3. And there were several ISOs where they forced shots where guys were open. And so I think the main thing is Donovan and James have to trust the pass. But like I like this, to me, is starting to feel a little bit more like a coin flip than I expected it to feel.
How could it not? I mean, you have to look at this right now that Toronto has all the momentum, and I love, The way I would put it is it's not like just scheme, like, oh, they found a scheme to it. It really is the pattern recognition of it all. It's the muscle memory of, okay, we found a defense that is causing them problems. And part of the reason it's causing them problems is the Cavs just don't have the same chemistry on offense that they've had in previous years, where you just needed a half step, get the ball moving, and we just know we're always going to find the right guys and they're going to finish it. They don't have that rhythm going right now. So there's a muscle memory to Toronto and how they're defending them that's working. But the other side of that is, and goes to your other point that you made in the previous series or discussion, and you're making it now, which is that the Raptors don't have great options for offense, but they have a lot of options. Yes, and they're almost all the same. You know, like we can go to Brandon Ingram, we can go to Barrett, we can go to Barnes, we can do this over here.
And Ingram's starting to get going a little bit.
Percolating a little from a very, really horrible start. So you have all these guys, these different options that are all like B options on offense. Whereas the Cavs have 2 A+ options, but if you slow that down, where do they go from that? And that's kind of the interesting battle here is what happens quicker. Do the Raptors go cold and have a tough night even with their B options? Or do the Cavs figure out how to get the ball moving? And more important than that, do they figure out how to finish when the ball gets moving? Because that's the other story. Not making some of these – they have a couple possessions where you're like, there it is. That's exactly what you need to do, and the shot's up and it's off. Or all of this, drop it to Mobley, and he's got to finish the touch shot, and it's off, which is a big story in this one. So can they get the ball popping, and can they convert on those? To me, that's the big question. And your point about the Cavs and their history and the players involved, some of this body language is a little bit of like, the thing you can't do is get frustrated. You have to trust your process and say, eventually we're going to break through. And the Cavs just have a little bit of that anxiety of, if it's not working by now, is it ever going to work? Should we white knuckle it and just try to force our way through? We'll see.
Yeah. To your point, I texted Jackson, the producer of Hoops tonight. I texted him during the Cavs game, and I was like, the Cavs are getting better looks for better shooters.
Yep.
Like, these are really good shooters that are missing good looks. And I mean, the easiest way to look at it is just in the percentages. In the regular season, the Cavs were 37% on catch and shoot threes. And in this series, they're 31%. Like, they're not shooting well. But to your point, if you trust the process, they should go down. And we talked about it after game 3. Like, for Mitchell and Harden, this new look where they're digging into the driving lanes is very much going to be you got to pass out of these ISOs type of look. And like one of the big ISOs late in the game, the one that when they were down by 3 late, RJ Barrett's guard, Mitchell drives left down the lane line, scoops in under the basket, and then stops around the right block and shoots like a little 10-footer and misses it. James Harden's wide open at the top of the key, because Toronto is reacting on these drives. And I know Donovan can make that shot, but it's like the way that you're going to have more sustainable success than Toronto in this series is by trusting the kick out pass and guys knocking down shots that they had been missing at other points in the series. There's more to it. Like, we got to dig into it a little bit in the sense that, like, Colin Murray-Boyles just like physically dominated the Cavs front line.
Best big man in the series.
Yeah. And by the way, like, Adam, how many times have we told this story before where it's like, oh, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are just getting outplayed in playoff games?
It's the saddest thing. Mobley might make an appearance later on in our show, but there's nothing that bothers me more than watching a big man miss like bunnies, when you drop it off from him and they go up soft, or the touch looks horrible. Like, you have a little 4-foot push shot against pressure and you miss it so horribly that you're like, what? And he just has a lot of those where you're watching it and you kind of wince. And this is what I mean about the Cavs. Like, do they trust that? When when a big man misses, when guys miss threes, you kind of say, okay, regression of the mean's coming. When a big man misses, I think guards are like, that guy can't finish. I'm not passing to him anymore.
Dude, it's legitimately crazy. Like, you can see, but my thing is, like, at least with the kick out shooters, you got to trust the process. But like, there's a legitimate finishing problem with the Cavs bigs that's taking place as well. And I mean, Colin Murray-Boyles too, he hasn't been attacked in switches as often, but he had a huge switch stop on Donovan Mitchell there on the potential game-winning shot as well, where he just stayed down, didn't go for the fakes. Even the one he did go for, he didn't foul. He kind of stayed back. Like, and again, like, Brandon Ingram is the big wild card here, to your point. Like, because RJ Barrett is bullying his way for closer range shots, because Scotty Barnes has been the best player in the series, is really starting to get going with these inverted actions. And Brandon Ingram is like the kind of guy that, like, in a big spot can hit 5 straight mid-range jump shots. And if that sort of thing happens, like, you could be looking at a situation where this is 3-2 in favor of Toronto going home for a closeout game. Like, the Cavs, I would still make them a slight favorite, like in that like 55-45 range.
They have home court. To me, it's just home court. That's like, to me, I put this at coin flip. One team has home court.
Yeah. And like, if you ask me, what do you think's going to happen? I'd be like, the Cavs just shoot really well from 3 in game 5 and game 7 and they win. That would be my guess. But like, this is real danger zone now.
You are, though, vulnerable to one of these guys going off in, like, for Toronto. Like, you are vulnerable now to the Ingram game in game 5. He just happens to be on fire, and now it tilts things. Last one for you, and then we got to keep it moving. This defense that you're talking about, though, I do wonder if Toronto is uniquely designed to be able to pull it off because they have so many just big guards that you can switch and you can sit down and guard. And there might be teams like Boston that's actually better at this, that has the same thing, but maybe at a higher level. So do you think the Raptors are uniquely designed for this, for Cleveland in some way? Or do you think it's like, hey, man, it actually gets harder from here, especially if you go to the finals, somehow you make it to the finals, you're going to see a OKC or a San Antonio team that does this at an even greater level than that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like the best example of this is a crazy stat for you, Adam. RJ Barrett's defended 23 ISOs in this series, and no other Raptor has been targeted more than 6 times. So like, what's crazy about that is like RJ Barrett is the easiest target for them.
Wow.
And he's a big physical athletic 2 guard.
Yeah.
And so it's that, but it's also it's both. It's like the switchability, but it's also they're just a very athletic team in rotation, which the way they're guarding by getting in the gaps is putting an emphasis on their ability to rotate, and they're just rotating extremely well, to their credit. So like, yeah, in that sense, like it is kind of the perfect defense to cause problems for a Cavs defense offense like this. Because I'd also argue the Cavs, as we talked about the catch and shoot percentage earlier, that's also been the thing with the Cavs over the years. They shoot the piss out of the basketball in the regular season, and then they get in the playoffs, and under some like really intense rotation, they start to miss shots. It's been a thing that's happened to them over the years.
All right, we got to take a break. On the other side, we're going to get to the Celtics and the Sixers on that series. We're going to obviously get to the Nuggets and the Wolves and talk about the real weird question in this one that shouldn't be a question is, who actually has the upper hand? Seems obvious, but I don't know with the latest injuries to Ant and to Donte DiVincenzo. So we'll get to that on the other side. Guys, listen up here. This is for all the guys out there. Mother's Day is coming. It's right around the corner. And you got to mix things up this year, not just the typical let's go to dinner or something that just fades away. Aura Frames, that's the name you want to know because Aura Frames has an incredible deal going for you this Mother's Day, and they are the perfect gift. What it is this digital photo frame. So it's a frame, an actual physical photo frame, but you can put digital photos inside of it that you can actually change from the touch of your phone to upload whatever photos you want while you're sitting on the couch. They have free unlimited storage. Add as many photos and videos as you want. You literally can have every photo you've ever taken in your life uploaded onto this this picture frame. You preload them before it ships, which is nice. So when you order online, you just upload the photo you want. So when she unboxes it, she will have that photo open right there for her. You can personalize the gift and add a message. There's gift box included where every frame comes packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag. And you can share your photos and videos effortlessly. You just download the free Aura app and text photos straight to your phone. The app was rated #1 in the App Store on Christmas Day in 2025. Christmas, it's going to be the same here for Mother's Day. This is the big gift buying days. Make Mother's Day special with Aura Frames. Named #1 by Wirecutter, you can save on the gifts mom loves by visiting auraframes.com. For limited time, listeners of this show can get $25 off their best-selling Carver Matte frame with the code ALLNBA, all one word, ALLNBA. That's auraframes.com, promo code ALLNBA. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. Let's open this one here. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props and your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your pick with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Must be 21 or older and present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, back here, segment 2. All-NBA show. I'm with Jason Timpf. All right, we got to do it. This has just been the week of hell for me because I have to talk about this on like every show I do. I have to go like, all right, let's now talk about the Nuggets collapsing and crumbling. Here's how I want to break it down. First, I want to talk about the series so far, and then I want to talk about the case for the Wolves closing this out and the case for the Nuggets getting back into the series. But first, the X's and O's that define the series. First one, and again, not the biggest, it's a big story, but not the biggest one necessarily. AG has been healthy for about 1.5 games. It's so clear in games 3 and 3 he sits out, 4 he's hobbling up and down the court on one leg. It's obviously a big story here, but the big story is that the Nuggets cannot score. I know there's a lot of conversation about the defense, and there's a reason for it. We'll get to it in a second. But the Nuggets have a 105 offensive rating. The defensive rating hasn't been that bad. There's been some things that, Minnesota's not the most dynamic offense, but the Nuggets cannot score. The second thing is that both Jokic and Murray are being shut down by their individual matchups and then worn down by the collective defense. So you get the struggle early and then the complete collapse late. And then the last thing is Denver cannot stop their 5-out attack, and Denver can't really stop out late in games when they just put their head down and decide to get into the paint. Perimeter containment can't do it. The rim protection obviously can't do it. So those things to me are what have really tilted this series. But I would still say that I think the number one reason is that Denver's offense just cannot find its rhythm at all. Are you muted? Did you mute yourself, JT?
Connected.
Oh,
I 100% agree with you. And I tend to think that these things are connected for these types of teams. So when you have teams that are built on elite offensive players, because like you even just look at the Lakers, for example, they didn't really start playing defense until Luka just exploded into this like MVP level player in March. And it was like, oh, like we have a shot because of this guy. Now let's sit in a stance and let's rotate and let's buy into the game plan. And like that is the case for all of these offensive oriented teams. Like they need to believe that what they're doing is going to work. And for the record, like, David Adelman talked after the game, and it was an embarrassing quote when he was like, "Oh, I thought we played hard tonight." I thought they did in the first half.
Yeah, they did.
I thought there was an overall like level of resistance at all 3 levels of the defense, at the point of attack, in some of their dig downs. And I thought Jokic was making efforts at the rim that he wasn't making earlier in the series. They were. The problem was, to your point, they also couldn't score. And so eventually it got a point where like you're hanging on for dear life and you're doing your job. And then all of a sudden, like they hit you with a couple of punches and you let go of the rope and then all hell breaks loose. And so that's why I think the offense is the biggest part to focus on, because I do think, as they've demonstrated several times over the years, Denver is capable of getting enough stops against Minnesota as long as they are scoring to win a game, right? And this is where the criticism to me falls on Jokic, because I actually do think, and by the way, to your credit, Adam, I find stan behavior to be absolutely insane when people refuse to criticize their favorite player. And I just think all year you've been so incredibly fair with how you've talked about Jokic, acknowledging all the things that have made him your favorite player and not diminishing his successes. There's been a lot of that, which has been really frustrating from
this
from
is just the world we live in now. Like anytime any player trips up, it's like, all right, well, hold on. Let's
reevaluate everything.
Yeah, everything.
Like I just have appreciated your authentic approach to the Jokic conversation over the entire season. But anyway, the reason why I've been frustrated with Jokic is like, it's very clear that when Minnesota really ratchets things up, that the team is athletically overwhelmed. Yeah. And that extends to everybody, but like Jamal Murray falls into that boat. Cam Johnson falls into the boat. I mean, hell, Christian Brown is one of your best athletes and the dude can't even score in transition the way that he usually does. And so there's real problems there. But Jokic is the one dude that's like big enough, strong enough, good enough footwork, good enough ball handler to get the ball across half court and get them into their stuff. And he has lost his composure. And has failed to get them into their stuff. And honestly, like, because to look forward in the series, which we can do more in a second, but like, I really key more in on Game 6, because in Game 5, I think the Nuggets' pride is going to show up, and they're going to show up in front of their home crowd, and I think they're going to have their best performance of the series, and I think they're going to win. But Game 6 is going to look exactly like the second half of Game 5 or 4. It's going to look exactly like that. It's going to be incredibly intense defensive pressure for 48 minutes in front of a ravenous crowd that wants to beat you so bad. And the one guy who's going to be able to settle them down in that environment and get them into their stuff and help them handle that circumstance is Jokic. And that's where, like, to me, it all trickles down. I think if Jokic does his job of getting them into their offense and getting them quality looks, all of a sudden guys like Cam and guys like Jamal will start playing better, which will trickle down into a better, consistent defensive effort and give them a better chance to save themselves in this series. But I really do think it all starts with Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. I think with Denver's side, I mean, to me, I've watched this team a lot. There's a lot of quit and just dysfunction in it, in the team right now, where I think a lot of this has to do with fatigue. This is one of the things, is they are playing a lot of minutes. They're basically trying to ride Jokic, Murray, and even Aaron Gordon as many minutes as they can squeeze out of them. And I know this to be true. You know, John Wass comes over from Minnesota, and talked about that series in 2024 and said, listen, our whole game plan is centered around wearing those guys down, throwing different guys at them, pressuring, trying to make them come back on the court. So every time he goes out, we say, hey, let's throw a blitz lineup out there and try to lure him back out on the court. They're executing it once again in the series, and Denver has kind of fallen into it to where there's just not a lot of fight from Jokic and Murray, especially late in games. You can see them worn down, and then unfortunately, mentally just don't seem to have it to push through that fatigue. But if we go forward, though, here's what gets in here. So that's all we've been seeing. It's been an utter dominance from Minnesota. But they do lose Anthony Edwards and Donte DiVincenzo, which is insane to happen this late in the series. They still got that game in game 4, so you could say, hey, we already seen it. But I think it's different when you get a day to prepare and say, okay, here's what they're limited at now. Here's the case for the Wolves. First, they only need one. You get 3 chances to try to get 1 win. 2, there's no AG or just a useless AG. I mean, Jokic threw a lob to Aaron Gordon under the basket that he didn't even jump for in that last game. It was, and he, of course he wasn't going to jump for that. Jokic just muscle memory threw it up there. But I don't think Denver's offense now is going to just necessarily become good. You know, now the question is, like, Anthony Edwards does give you some defensive versatility, but Rudy Gobert is still there. Jokic still has to guard go up against Rudy Gobert. It's still a one-on-one matchup. It's not like they're helping. And Murray still has to go up against Jaden McDaniels. So one case for the Wolves is that those 2 matchups, which are the most important ones, don't really change. And then Ayo Dosunmu, who had a phenomenal game 4, that is the archetype of player that gives Denver trouble, a speedy guard. Now, he got free in transition a lot in that game that I think Denver can shore up. But you at least look at that and say, I don't know that it's a total coincidence or just a hot game that he came in and it was effective. Denver struggles with that type of player against every team.
No, exactly. Like the defensive problems are going to be there for Denver no matter what, in terms of like them being able to handle the pressure. Like Jokic's Gobert problem is not going away just because Donte DiVincenzo's out of the series, right? And Ayo Dosunmu, in terms of their ability to contain on the ball, like he brings enough downhill burst and enough pull-up shooting. Like Denver, you and I talked about this in our watch along for game 1. Like, they're kind of letting Ayo take these pull-up threes and pick and roll. Like, we'll see. He might make them. He made them all season, and guess what? He burned you guys in game 4. And like,
it was like it's a scripted go under on him. I can't understand it. Why are they going under?
You and I were talking about that in game 1. We're like, why are they doing that? Like, because but anyway, the point is like I agree that there will be enough game plan options available for Adelman and the crew that it's going to be really hard for Minnesota to win without Ant and without Donte in Denver. I wouldn't write them off. Like if Denver lost tonight, it wouldn't be like the most stunning thing in the world. But I would make Denver a pretty substantial favorite tonight, and I'd make them a pretty substantial favorite in a game 7 if they got there. It really comes down to game 6 for me. Yeah. Game 6 is the game where it's like, we've just seen this a lot over the years. Like, closeout games at home in general are really, really tough to win. And when you factor in the specific dynamic, which is like, it just gets so loud in there, and Minnesota fouls you from the first tip to the final buzzer, and it just becomes a really difficult game to officiate. And we've seen Denver decompose in that environment, like multiple times. Like, it's actually interesting, Adam. I'd argue that there's only 2 teams in the NBA that can really cause you to decompose with their defense, and it's OKC and it's Minnesota. They're the only two teams that have that gear that they can get to. I mean, like maybe San Antonio, but it's less of like a physical dominance. It's more of just a Wemby problem.
Yeah. It's
but
just more,
in terms of like, we're just going to physically ball pressure. Like I thought, Legs is the best at this, but remember Legs during the game when he was talking about how like just nothing is conceded. That's the thing with OKC and Minnesota that's different than these other defenses. Like, it's not even about like, oh, what action should we run? Or like they're covering it this way, so we should counter with this. It's like, can you get the ball across half court? Can you get the ball to the high post without turning it over? Like that is the thing with this matchup that's causing them problems. And so to me, do I think Denver has what it takes to win this series? Yes, but it's all going to come down to whether or not they can win game 6, which is going to be a game where you're going to give roughly a 50% chance to Minnesota just under the circumstances. So at that point, you have to give them some small chance to win 5 and 7. So at this point, you kind of have to make Minnesota a slight favorite.
I think I'll disagree in one way, that I actually think it comes down to game 5. It will then go to game 6, but game 5 to me, they're favored by 10 points tonight on FanDuel. And I think it's just a matchup, like who's on the court, who's playing. But I do worry about Denver. Denver's fracturing. They showed a lot of heart through about 1.5 games. The end of game 2, game 3, and game 4, to me, Denver just looked like a team that was conceding its fate in a weird way. And maybe it's the Aaron Gordon injury. I think this team knows what they are without Aaron Gordon. Either way, it's disappointing. These guys get paid millions of dollars because you just want to see them fight, even in a hopeless situation. It's like, just go out there and battle, see what you got. And Denver has not had that, other than if you break the unwritten rules, then they have it in that moment. But if we go to even game 5, Julius Randle is a mismatch for Denver, all of Denver's options, especially if Aaron Gordon can't play or is still hobbled. And I suspect that'll be the case, one of those two. But Julius Randle, who guards him? Jokic is going to be on Gobert. If it's not him, it's either Spencer Jones, who was a two-way player a couple months ago and he's just undersized. You go to Zeke Naji, who has never been a reliable player for Denver. Like, Denver only uses him when they absolutely have to. That's still a major advantage. So my worry about them is, can they score in this series? And I look at that and I go, one of their key guys, maybe the key guy remaining, has a massive advantage over whoever it is Denver rolls out.
Have you thought about potentially going to a too big look? Do you think that's something that they would consider?
It's just, again, like maybe, but what we're here talking about a game 5 must-win playoff series, and we're talking about trying out a lineup that's, one, kind of crazy, 2 very slow-footed centers, and 2, we haven't seen it, other than spot. Yeah. I don't know the last time we saw it, 2-3 months ago.
You're right. I mean, they're kind of running out of options. So I'm assuming there's no chance with Peyton Watson.
I don't think Peyton Watson's come back in this series. I think that there's a chance he's not back by the early part of next one should Denver advance.
So I do have 2 quick follow-ups for you, because by the next time I come on the show, it very well may be next Friday, and you and Legs will have already discussed some Nugget stuff. So yeah. I want to run 2 quick ones by you. One, I was a big proponent of the Cam Johnson trade, and I'm a huge fan of Cam Johnson. I have had to relent and admit that the lack of Michael Porter Jr. as another layer of rim protection has been a flaw in this team. Do you have any altered opinion on the Cam Johnson, Michael Porter Jr. trade at this point?
Not really. I don't think it's that. Denver's problems right now, I don't want to do their eulogy before it ends, so I'll just be brief about this, but I do think the team has slowly expired in ways that we didn't fully feel, because they were able to just get these playoff wins that, they last year was a disaster. They fired their coach with 3 games to go, but then they pushed OKC to 7. And you're like, well, which one of those do we?
And they beat a good Clippers team.
So you kind of weigh well, hold on, how far are we if we only lost in game 7 to the best team? I think the truth was, but the season was a sinking ship and you kind of got inspired late. This year we saw a lot of that. There's just no inspiration at the finish line. So I think that there's something to that, and that's kind of how I analyze them. But again, I don't want to eulogize them yet. Let me make the case for Denver. One of the stories that's true of most of these series right now is that the teams that are relying on guys to be both offense and defense in a big way have been wearing down. And the way you stop that is you have a balanced roster, so there is no easy entry point on either side of the floor, and that works. Denver obviously has Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, who are their offensive engines, and Minnesota saying, well, you're going to be your defensive engine too. We're going to make you guard everything and wear you down, and that's worked. Jaden McDaniels has been able to be, yes, he's scored, but he scored just off of like, it's not like they're asking him to do a whole lot. He's just filling in the seams. And he gets to be a defensive dog. I do wonder if they're going to be able to score, and if he has to put more attention and energy towards the offensive end, can that wear him down on defense? Like, he is now going to have to potentially play 3 games where he is relied on to be a little bit more on offense while not losing anything on defense. And that could end up being the same thing goes for Ayo Dosunmu. I just wonder if now that you lose Anthony Edwards, that's actually the thing he was shouldering. He was shooting 30% in the series. He was actually having a rough series. But it's like, it doesn't matter. You take that burden and we'll just defend. And now there's no one to take that burden.
Yeah, I think in general, that's been when we look around the league, the teams that have had success have been the teams that have guys that can entirely devote their resources to carrying the team athletically and physically.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of was what Aaron Gordon's job was in a lot of ways. And that's why when
totally
look at how much different this team looked when he was feeling good athletically in game 1, where he looked great and was like dunking on people and had all that burst.
I'm going to honestly believe this series came down to the second quarter of game 2 because Denver panicked. They were up 19 and they blew it, and they panicked and put all their guys back in, and the team has not been the same since then. And Aaron Gordon in particular, he was done in that second quarter and never came back. And I do wonder if that was, maybe it was inevitable, but I do look at that and say, man, we got basically 5 quarters out of AG.
No, that's basically where everything pivoted. And I just, like, I was looking, we're going to get to it in this next segment, but like, I'm just looking at a lot of young athletic players that are in their 20s that are doing a ton of dirty work, that are carrying massive chunks of rotation minutes for these teams. And I just think, I think in general, my entire perspective on team building has shifted in the last couple of years. And I know you don't want to eulogize the Nuggets, so I'll just do my like little 2 cents on it. If this goes south, I think that Denver's going to have to contemplate making a shift in roster construction more towards the Steph Curry build. And what I mean by that is like surround Steph with defense and count on Steph to create shots. I think that's going to be what Denver's going to have to do if they're going to get another window out of Jokic. It's going to have to be, we surround him with just a bunch of athletic ass-kicking defenders, and we count on Jokic to create our enough offense for us to be good enough on that end of the floor. Like, I just think that these thin, skill-based players are just getting overwhelmed all over the playoff field.
Well, and athletes. I mean, we're just seeing, this is the playoffs of athleticism. It just is such a huge
so was
advantage.
Last year.
In the playoffs, you're watching it, and you're like, man, that team, if you don't match up athletically, you lose so much margin in other areas that you used to think of as strength. And Denver has gotten away. Denver's been an unathletic team for a long time. They've just had a lot of unathletic guys, even more so this year, and you're seeing it. Real quickly, though, so you also can get just better performances out of Yoke. I mean, he has just been so disappointing. Some of this is great Rudy Gobert defense. Some of it is Nikola. I mean, 5 of I can't remember what the number is, 27 or something like that from 3. It's just been horrible. Maybe he gets hot. But here's the real question. The Wolves have 6 players who have given something in the series so far. They have Gobert, McDaniels, Randle, and Ayo. That's your 4 big ones. Then you have Naz Reid, who actually hasn't had a good series, but at least you know he's in the rotation and can play. And then after that, you go Bones, Conley, Slow-Mo, Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Clark. They really only have, I guess, 5 guys that you look at and say they have actually done something in this series. So whatever version we're getting of them going forward is actually completely different because you're counting on 20 minutes a game out of 2 guys that basically haven't played. That's a real question mark. I actually think when you try to build a rotation and say, okay, how are you going to play? You actually get to a point where you're like, man, some of these lineups are not going to make sense.
Yeah, to your point, like there's going to be a lot more Mike Conley minutes that are going to be opportunities for Denver to look to attack, and that's where like to the point that I was making earlier, Adam, like that decomposing before you get across half court thing. That's where they're losing the series. Like that's where they blew game 4. There was a point late in the second quarter where they had 0 turnovers.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they just completely fell apart in the second half. So like my thing is like, yes, because of the injuries, if Denver can turn this into a half court execution battle, they have a big advantage.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if they roll up in Minnesota in game 6 and soil themselves, for lack of a better way of putting it. So like, that's really, to me, the dynamic. Like they got to pass the physical test. Like, and Jokic himself has been one of the guys who's been decomposing. That's why I think it's got to start with him, really.
I think both teams end it at this round. So like if Denver wins, it's hard to talk yourself into them, especially with the hobbled AG getting competitive in the next round. And unfortunately, no Ant and Donte, same thing. So my big thing I'm looking for is just, does Denver fight? I'm just curious if they fight in what feels like a hopeless battle of the big picture of the season, but we'll see. Really quickly, Sixers Celtics last night, a blowout. And my only take here, and it feels like a hater take, but I've said this from the very beginning of the year, Embiid just throws them off. They have two different teams, two different identities, and it has not merged. Really at no point, in my opinion, in the Embiid era have they ever perfectly merged. But last night's game was the biggest, like, oh my God, here it is. They are just throwing the ball in to Embiid and letting him try to cook, and nothing else is happening in the important portion of this game.
Yeah, it was a textbook example of like, I do think the Sixers are more scary with Tyrese Maxey in a game like that than they are with Embiid. But there is technically a higher ceiling with Embiid in theory. Like there was a version of that game where Embiid hits every jump shot he takes and he drops 45 and the Sixers push it to game 5 at a 2-2, right? So like I get why they did it in the sense that you're drawing dead anyway. You're going to lose the series. Why not throw the world's biggest giant 7-foot curveball into the equation? So like I get that, but like the story of the game to me was Tyrese Maxey didn't attempt a shot in the entire like first 6 minutes of the game. And then by the time Embiid checks out and they try to establish Maxey, Jordan Walsh checks in. And Tyrese had looked great against Derek White all series. He just looked like he could get wherever he wanted. But now he's trying to establish his rhythm against Jordan Walsh, who's this amazing defender, and he can't get his game off. And like it just kind of disrupted the whole rhythm. But really, the other biggest problem is like Boston has just figured out how to score on Philly easily. Yeah. And they had their best offensive game. Tatum looks amazing. They have like similar to what we were talking about earlier. They have like a half dozen different ways that they can go about getting a great shot. Like they were just running pick and pop with like Tatum and a guard. Tatum's getting pick and pop threes. Tatum's attacking in the post against Paul George and Kelly Oubre. Jaylen Brown's been torching their smalls all series long. Peyton Pritchard's getting whatever he wants. Like they have a million ways that they can get good shots, and Philly's just hopeless trying to guard this team.
Yeah. That's all I got for that one, to be honest. It feels like it's over, and that 76ers team, it's just the tough thing about them. They're never healthy enough to get going. By the way, this is a story for a lot of teams. The regular season is supposed to get you ready for the playoffs, and I just feel like very few teams actually did that over the course of the regular season because it's been the year of injuries. Let's go our headline topic, though, now. Bring up the thumbnail for me real quick, Atticus, can you? I want to show JT. We have first-round winners and losers. You can see clearly the winners are myself and Rudy Gobert, and the losers are Evan Mobley and Jason Timpf. I don't know if you caught this from Atticus, man. You're on the loser side, buddy. JT, biggest loser. No, I want you to do your list, and I'm just going to give you the ones that are on mine that you left off. But number one winner from the playoffs so far.
I went with Brad Stevens. He's getting 44 playoff minutes per game out of Nimi Keita, Baylor Shireman, and Jordan Walsh.
Yeah.
That's almost 20% of his playoff rotation.
Yeah.
Keita is averaging 18 points and 11 rebounds per 36. He can't stop fouling, but when he's out there, he's playing great. Baylor Shireman is 6 for 13 from three. There's only been 5 regular rotation players in the entire playoff field that are hitting more threes per minute than Baylor Shireman. And Jordan Walsh has been their best on-ball defender against Tyrese Maxey. And like when you zoom out, it's like they have all their first-round picks except for one swap with the Spurs and one first-round pick that they traded away. So they've got lots of draft compensation available. All their dudes are young. Derek White's 31, and obviously Vucevic is just a stopgap, but all their other dudes are like early, mid-20s. Like legitimately the Celtics to me with Tatum looking better than he did even before his Achilles injury. Jaylen Brown looks like the best player he's ever been. Like I just think the Celtics are set up for success, and Brad Stevens is looking like a damn genius right now.
Here's the only reason I'm going to disagree. Just like the Spurs back in the Tim Duncan era, to me, it's impossible to separate with this team. Is it good scouting and drafting and free agency, or is it just that culture turns those guys into that? And I think it's both. But I think it's both, but I do think there's something to it. It's the same with OKC. Yes, they've drafted some great players, but every player just seems to be 120% of themselves when they get into that culture, and that's a credit to the coaching staff, to the entire organization, and to the players themselves. All right, who's number 2?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And the reason why is if he wins, there have been very few players that have been considered unanimously the best player in the world. I think you and I might have had this conversation on the show a few weeks back, but it's really just like, because Bird and Magic were competing against each other, it's really just like MJ, like Shaq in the early 2000s, like LeBron in the 2010s, and then Jokic in the last couple of years. But there's just very rarely do you see a player who's kind of unanimously considered the best. If Shea wins it this year, because of how bad Jokic has been, because Luka got hurt again, because Giannis got hurt again, because Wemby will have, in this scenario, been outplayed by Shea in the conference finals and gone to the NBA finals. Like, I just think Shea would be considered the unanimous best player in the world if he won the title this year. And that's just an extremely rare air for a player like him. And I think that makes him a big potential winner at this point. Right. But the reason why I'm saying he's a winner now is because I think it would have required Jokic to look bad. And
he's getting that as well. Yeah. All right. Who's next?
I'm going to go with LeBron.
Yeah, he's on my list.
LeBron wins this first round series, it's like strangely a big feather in his cap moving forward. Just if he were able to float the team long enough to, I didn't think it was possible at this phase in his career to continue to kind of like add to his legacy. But obviously he looked every bit of 41 years old last night, and that was very much a punt from the Lakers. But there is a level that LeBron reached in the first 3 games of this series that was genuinely incredibly impressive. He was legitimately one of the top 5 players in the playoffs in the first 3 games of the playoff of that series. And I just think he's done a lot to even take some of the people that were kind of teetering on the fence for him in the GOAT debate. He's moved a lot of them over to his size.
Yeah, just his ability to still control the series, like just control it. It's going to be played on my terms. That's what this series is. And he's on my list because he's been absolutely fantastic. He almost reminds me of, like, he's in the phase now. You keep wondering how he's going to age. He's almost aging into the Andre Iguodala version of LeBron, which is to say, in the regular season, we were talking about how well he filled in the gaps and adjusted his game to play off of Luka. And now here he is. Can he go back to being LeBron? And the answer is yes. He can't do it probably for 82 games, but you get him in the playoffs, and he can do it for 3 out of 4 at least. He's on my list. Who else?
All right, 2 more. CJ McCollum.
How could he not be?
He had become kind of like an afterthought. Like, he was literally a throw-in, but like, I think he's done enough for his reputation in this series that I think he'll become a player that is legitimately sought after as like a ceiling raiser for the next couple of years. Like, I think he's going to be on some really good playoff teams in the next couple of years, whether it's Atlanta or it ends up being I think Atlanta probably needs to target a better version of CJ if they want to have real like top end success. But like, I think you're going to see good teams go after CJ for the next couple of years. It's been a great story with him. It is 2-2. We'll see. I wonder if that is a story that goes away. Like, if you lose in 6, it's like, he got some good games early on, but I'm rooting for it because it has been fun, and it's my Atlanta Hawks. I have to root for it. All right, who's the last guy on your top 5? Wendell Carter Jr.
This is an insane. I cannot believe it. Wendell Carter Jr. has been great too, but I am so surprised by some of the people you left off.
So I just think that the job that he's done defensively has been one of the key fulcrums for potentially an 8-1 upset, which would be one of the craziest things you could see in a first round series. He has straight up badly outplayed Jalen Duren on both ends of the floor. And that to me has been like the pivot point where this series has turned. And I just think for a guy that like was kind of just considered a very average center in the NBA, he's suddenly looking like one of the most impactful playoff players in this field, and I just think he's done a lot for his reputation.
He actually has been great. I've always liked Wendell Carter Jr. I think that guy is underrated defensively, and then offensively just knows what he's supposed to do and executes his job. I think he's a guy that would fit on almost any team. And Jalen Duren made my other side of the list, just to spoil.
Oh, yeah, he's on mine too.
But it's almost like I didn't pick both, but maybe I could have.
You'll notice too, like mine kind of come in duos. Like I had Wendell Carter Jr., but I also had Jalen Duren. I had LeBron, but I also had KD. I had Brad Stevens, but I also had another GM. So like I kind of like did them in pairs.
Gotcha.
But anyway, I want to hear your other winners that you picked.
How about Rudy Gobert? You talk about a guy that's a multiple-time defensive player of the year, and yet guys just like the casual fan just loves to dunk on this guy. His reputation in one series has completely flipped. Like, I've never seen anything like this where he's finally accepted into the Hoopers community for like, all right, that guy knows how to guard. I just think Rudy Gobert, his career will be talked about differently before the series and after it. I think it's been that big of a win for him that he finally defended his honor. I wholeheartedly
agree with you. And like, one of the things that's frustrating with me with Rudy is like I never thought the conversation about defense with him made sense. Like he had some defensive losses. Like I did think he guarded the Luka Doncic pull up really poorly in that game 2 in the Western Conference Finals a couple years back, which could have changed the series in a lot of ways. But like for the most part, I just think he's an incredible defender that any question marks more center around the offensive end of the floor and his ability to catch and finish in traffic. And to his credit, he's won a lot of battles on the offensive glass against Jokic in this series, which I think has been a big part of his offensive impact.
And that hasn't necessarily been the case. That's another area, like you look at just signs of what's been different about this, because these guys have matched up a lot. Jokic has got the better of him a lot. But that is one that stood out to me as I'm like, man, Jokic can't seem to get a rebound around this guy right now, which is very interesting.
I think he's exhausted. I think he's losing some of these rebounding battles because he's so tired.
Could be.
Yeah.
And then the last one I have on here, I have actually a couple honorable mentions, but the last one I would fight for is Scotty Barnes. I just think this is a big Scotty Barnes playoffs run where you're like, I think he's thought of as a tweener. Like he's not your number one guy, but he would be incredible as number 2. He's kind of a number 1 guy on this team because there isn't a true one, but he's getting it done, man. Colin Murray-Boyles.
An honorable mention for Darko Rajakovic too.
Yeah.
For the job that he's done with that. He's won the tactical battle over Kenny Atkinson, and I just look at the job he's done. I loved the way he was talking about Scotty Barnes after that game. You could just tell he has just so much confidence.
His energy and everything, man. It's like it really is good for the culture. McDaniels, Colin Murray-Boyles, Cat, and Dylan Harper also get honorable mentions from me.
All great picks.
Let's go to the losers though. Top 5 losers.
All right, so my GM counterpart, Trajan Langdon. Not going after Ayo Dosunmu when he was offloading Jaden Ivey. I checked this morning. The Pistons have 14 available second-round picks. And the price was 4.
I screamed this all year long. Pistons fans hated me for it. But I kept saying is you have enough picks anyway. It's not even like you have, what are you doing?
And even if you okay. It's so frustrating because let's say you're saying, because if you look at the way they structured it, they took back a big expiring salary in Kevin Huerter. They wanted salary flexibility. I understand that. Do you want to win the title this year?
I know.
Because if I ask you right now, would you rather have 9 second-round picks moving forward, a clean cap sheet, and Ayo Dosunmu for this particular playoff run? What would you rather have? Yeah. You're taking the dude has 68 points in the last 2 playoff games. Detroit, Adam, has literally been far and away the worst half-court offense in the playoffs so far. They're getting just 84.6 points per 100 half-court possessions. That's even worse than the Houston Rockets. It's even worse than Portland against Wemby. They are not able to score, and it's very clear that Cade is having these bursts where he looks good, but then he gets fatigued and he can't make shots. Like right after they went up by 1 in game 3, he just fell apart down the stretch because it's tiring to have to do every single thing. And
every series, I'm telling you, fatigue, it's not a small thing. Every series, it's a real battleground. It's strategic. Can we wear this team out? And we're seeing
meanwhile, they're trying to figure out what to do with this closing lineup, whether it's Duncan Robinson or it's Dennis Jenkins or whoever it might be. Like, how much better would you feel if, I think, look at how Cleveland has looked. Look at how New York has looked. Like, if this team had Ayo Dosunmu, you would view them as clearly the second best team in the conference and with a legitimate puncher's chance to beat Boston and make the finals. Like, I just thought it was a gross misunderstanding of the opportunity that you had and the flaw that this team had and the price point. Like, you were doing business with Chicago. You had to have understood that Ayo was up for sale there. And you could have gotten him probably with a protected first because they didn't get a single first out of any other guys that they got rid of, or you could have gotten him by outbeating Minnesota with the 4 second-round picks. So it's like I just thought that was a huge missed opportunity.
The windows are short. I think if Denver does lose this one, in hindsight, their window will have been from 21 to 24. They lose Murray for 21 and 22, win in 23, and run it back and come up short in 24. And then, but even after 23, the team said, it might be a gap here. Or at least I should say Calvin Booth said this. We might have to take a step back to take a step forward. It's like, hey, man, the window might close while you take that step back. Yeah, and it's the same with Detroit. They're looking at this as, our window starts next year. But it's like, hey, man, you have no idea when that window closes. In today's NBA, you just have no idea. All right, next loser.
Jalen Duren.
Yeah, it's tough.
He's going to get paid, but I wonder how many how many millions he will lose if he continues to play this poorly and lose in the first round, because he's been bad on defense. He's been unable to score in any way other than spoon-fed dunks underneath the basket. And just quite frankly, a defensive player that in the postseason can't anchor your defense and can't score in any way other than dunking lobs is a guy you can replace with a veteran minimum contract.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't resign Duren. And obviously it's a matchup thing because there are other matchups where Duran's an absolute man and he just dominates, especially against
but that's different.
Players.
That's the thing you have to answer.
That's the playoffs.
Is this guy weak against a certain archetype? And then it's easy to shut that down.
Exactly. So like he's going to get paid, but I do wonder how many millions he's cost himself in this playoff series.
He's on my list as well.
Nikola Jokic, just simply because of the conversation we had earlier, like people like me and you are just going to call this what it is, a really bad playoff series and a black mark on his resume.
Yeah.
But the weird thing about, because a lot of people are pointing out like, oh, like what about 2016 Steph, or what about 2011 LeBron, or what about 2004 Kobe? And the big difference between those slip ups is they occurred early in the career and they were mostly viewed as like a humbling springboard for a dominant prime. This is weirdly located kind of late in his career, which is going to allow some of his detractors to retroactively try to rewrite the story of his career. And I don't agree with that, but the court of public opinion does matter. And so I think Nikola Jokic, if he loses this series, stands to lose a lot of ground in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, I talked about how I didn't think Jokic would win another MVP until he won a championship. This one, I think, firmly puts him in the, like, just everything will be questioned next year. You'll probably even see, are we sure he's first team all NBA? Are we sure he's, this or that? Like that those things are going to come out. So clearly a huge loser. And then on top of that, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, he's up for an extension this year. And he didn't sign it last year. This year, people always say, why does no one talk about Jokic's defense? Everyone lives in a bubble. It's talked about all the time. It's his number one criticism. Why don't people say he should leave? Guys, wait till the summer, because that will be the conversation that people are going to say, are we sure he should stay in Denver? So people always have that like false sense of nobody's talking about a thing. All right, run through your last ones because I know you have to leave in 1 minute.
I have a couple minutes where we'll be okay. Kevin Durant, I just think in general, like by him, call it the injury, call it the way he looked in game 2, call it some of the weird body language stuff, call it the not being on the bench for game 3. There's just a combination of factors from this first round against the Lakers that in the same way are elevating LeBron, it's bringing Kevin Durant down. And I just think that in general, he's going to be remembered as a mercenary and a guy that everywhere he went for whatever reason just kind of came out looking worse after he got there. And I think that even though there's context in a lot of these situations, like my next one, and I'll just skip to it right now, I think the fifth loser is the Rockets front office, Rafael Stone. Like if you just look at the other cores in the West, like this Reed Shepherd, Jabari Smith, Alperen Şengün, Amen Thompson core is just nowhere near as good as the Castle Harper Wemby core or the Shea Chet J-Dub core. But like, so that's the context for the Kevin Durant thing, is it's not all his fault, but like there's enough like circumstantial evidence now that's going to put him a pretty hefty amount below the guys like Steph, LeBron in his era.
You went GM, I went coach with Ime Udoka. I just think the shine is completely off this guy, and now you look at it and say, like, what is he? And then the last one I have is Evan Mobley. I think Evan Mobley conversation completely shifts after this. I've always been skeptical of him because of his limited offense and just some of the different things, but I think people will look at him now and say he's like, feels like a superstar sort of big man, versatile defender, but he's kind of just a step below that in terms of how much does he actually impact both sides of the court, and are his weaknesses just a thing where max player you get worried about we're going to have to build around him and make up for his deficiencies. Tough one for him. He could still bounce back and be a big player, but at this very moment, I think he's a loser, a major loser of this playoffs. JT, you got to run. I got a super chat, but it's for me. I can handle it on your way out. I know you're in a hurry, so why don't we bid you farewell? Anything you want to push?
No, we're good, man. I'm just I'm enjoying this playoff run, and I'm looking forward to our next chat, man.
All righty. Take care, man. We'll talk soon. I got this one here. You can go ahead and take him off there, Atticus. I got this one here from my future username. He says, hypothetically, if Denver remained as number 4 seed in this same series was in the Western Conference Finals and not a first round, do you think the backlash would be as severe? Absolutely not. I don't think it would be as severe. And it's an interesting thing to think about here because it wouldn't make anything different for the Nuggets or for Jokic or for any of this. If it happened in the conference finals, we would probably look at it and say, well, it's a conference finals run. He did a good job. And, they ran up against the one team designed to beat them that they've had trouble with. But I think that would actually, in this case, disguise the truth, and that the Nuggets have something very compromised about them, and that maybe the formula is off and there's something that you can pick at with this team. And I think we've seen this at other times when teams will make a Western Conference Finals run and it'll be against weak competition and you say it's no big deal. And then sometimes we do this in the opposite direction where a team will actually be great but lose in the first round, and that was the real conference finals. It just happened to be in the first round, and then you try to analyze the team and say, well, they just weren't close. They didn't have it. I don't think that's the case for Denver this year. I think there's multiple teams that would have made Denver look this bad. Oklahoma City would have probably made Denver look this bad. San Antonio might have made Denver look this bad. So I think in Denver's case, it's not such that you can say, well, it was just a bad first round matchup. But there are other instances where a team goes up and just a tough one looks bad, and you have to sit there and try to decide, do we actually think this was just a bad path for us and we're closer than we think? So it's a real one. It's part of what's tough about the NBA. You can cue that outro music, Atticus. But I will say this. The NBA right now, the playoffs are so different from the regular season, and these teams get themselves into these playoff matchups where you have to be so versatile. You have to be able to do the thing that you do at such a high level that teams can't stop it. And the matchups and the style fights are so compelling. So right now you have a Minnesota team, and unfortunately they lost their guys, so we might not see it all the way through. But you have a Minnesota team that just knows how to flip a switch. It's clear as day that they are good defensively in the regular season, but they can become great defensively when they just put all of their energy towards it. And we're seeing that across both conferences right now, that there are teams that just have something that they can fall back on when it really matters. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm back with Tim Legler on Wednesday and on Friday. I think we're a little bit later this week on Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern time, because Legs is traveling, but we will be breaking down the games over the next 48 hours on that Wednesday show with Legs. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Make sure you hit the like button. You can check out the Mark Stein episode from yesterday, some good stuff and different topics. That one's up and available for you as well. Hit the like button on the way out, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.